Welcome everyone. Welcome this fine evening to the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee, taking place on Tuesday, the 8th of June, 2021 at 5 p.m. Can I remind everyone first that this meeting is being recorded and copy archived for future viewing? Could all participants mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up using the hand function, or put your hand up on the screen and I'll hopefully find you and let you speak. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the chairman or democratic officer know. If they have a webcam, then they should try turning this off, and this will help with broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth so they can at least be heard here and be heard. So without further ado, welcome committee members, officers and any public speakers who are present. Right, moving on now to the agenda, which is agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. I know Councillor Janice Charles has given hers to me directly. Amy, is there anyone else you understand that has given?
No, thank you, Chairman. All the rest of the committee are present. Okay,
brilliant. Thank you very much. We can move straight on then to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of the meeting held virtually on 11th of May 2021. Does anyone want to go over anything, or would we like to just propose and second it to pass this through?
Move the minutes.
Thank you, Neil Thomas. Would anyone like to second? Thank you, Councillor Jarvie. Okay, brilliant. And on to agenda item 3, which is to receive declarations of interest. Okay, I cannot see anyone's hands up or chat function, so we're happy to move on. Amy?
Thank you very much, Chairman. If you don't mind, committee, I just wanted to take a very brief moment just to remind all members of that we have of the call-in procedure for the council, as well as the request for consideration procedure. Democratic officers will be reminding all scrutiny committees through the course of this month. It's just a gentle reminder, really, that the processes are there. The relevant forms are available to you all on MemberNet. And as always, if you need any advice on whether you wish to use those processes, by all means, please get in touch with the Democratic Services Officer. Thank you, Chairman.
Excellent, thank you, Amy. And now we can move on to the main part of the meeting here, agenda item 4, which is a presentation, Intelligent Personal Assistances Using Mainstream Technology to Enhance Independent Living. Nick French and Ashley Bale from Innovative Trusts. Hi there both. Over to you both to give the presentation.
Yeah, is it okay if we have share rights so I can share the presentation if that's possible? Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Maybe 1 second.
Thank you. If you can just let me know what you can see now.
Yes, the presentation's come up for me.
That's great, thanks.
Okay, we can start, yeah, anytime, yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. So, yeah, I've been partly already introduced. So I'm Nick French, Chief Executive of Innovate Trust. Innovate Trust are a charity that was set up in the late 60s and early 70s by a group of students from Cardiff University who came up with an idea of working with individuals with learning disabilities in the community. They set up the first group home, as it was called, where students lived alongside individuals from Ely Hospital. And that piece of work was then sort of written up and shared across the country and ultimately culminated in the closing down of long-term institutional care from people with learning disabilities. We used to be called Cardiff University Social Services, but now we're called Innovate Trust for the last almost 20 years. So we're really interested in promoting individuals' independence, trying to maintain and increase people's independence. And so we started a project in early 2017, which we titled Intelligent Personal Assistance, and was linked to the Internet of Things and the control of voice-activated or motion-activated devices that now people are far more familiar with, but like the likes of Amazon Alexa, Google Home, etc. But they were sort of new out there at the time. So so this is sort of showing you our journey, but also the latter part of this presentation is about an app that we've written called Insight that we've been sharing and allowing all organisations across Wales and further afield, and particularly in the Vale, and all individuals with a learning disability to access for the last 15 months in order to take part in a range of activities. But we'll come to that. So, Ashley. So our aims with Intelligent Personal Assistance, we think that that a lot of people that are in supported living with a learning disability could become more independent than they are. Some of those people could go on to live more independently in different environments. And we're also keen on maintaining people's independence so they don't end up in a situation where, or we can avoid where possible, them needing greater levels and maybe moving back into supported living environments. But we're also very interested in transitions work and working with individuals with learning disability who are much younger, maybe sort of 10, 11-year-olds, equipping them so when they reach adulthood, they just go maybe bypass supported living environments altogether and go on to live more independently in the community. So as our Intelligent Personal Assistant project, as I've already said, it's smart speakers and the Internet of Things, which is just devices which are connected to the internet and other devices that can be voice or gesture controlled. And what we're trying to do is empower individuals and maintain and increase independence where we can, but also sustain and maximize resources, because this is all about mainstream technology and things that people can buy themselves and that they can be taught to utilize, as we've been doing, really. And over to Ashley for this one.
Yeah, so our journey started in 2017. We were awarded 15,000 to start a project exploring the use of IPA devices with supported people. Into 2018, then we developed the first supported smart house in the UK, and then took doctorate research with Cardiff University Psychology Department into the effects of wellbeing. So we carried out a joint piece of research into the effects of wellbeing before and after the introduction of smart speaker devices. And we're presently now sharing our knowledge and developing smart homes in partnership with housing associations and local authorities. So we're trying to provide a blueprint where properties can be developed with this technology already integrated. We're also working with different housing associations and local authorities to also retrofit as well. So there's different technologies we've used. We've used voice and video technology. So we're using mainstream technology such as Amazon Alexas and Google Homes. The Echo devices with the built-in video conferencing as well, so people can make telephone calls to family and friends for free. We've also used gesture sensors that detect movements around properties, so we can put sensors on different cupboards around the property, whether that's a medication cupboard, fridges. We can determine the usage of electricity, whether the state of a plug is on and off, whether a light's been on and off. And it's a good way of determining how active someone is around the property, and it's less intrusive than other methods of support. We also looked at EEG and EMG, so using brainwave and muscular control devices. So there's an example in Singapore where a tourist board were using it to elicit whether someone was enjoying an activity. So there was a family of four, 2 adults, 2 children, went to a museum. The family there, it was determined that the parents enjoyed the museum, whereas when they went to the amusement park, then the children enjoyed the amusement park, and they were using that for monitoring brainwave activity. So we're wondering whether that could be used in the support environment with people we support. Then there's 4 then where we're using the Internet of Things, where Nick touched on where is any devices connect to the internet, and that could be things from detecting environmental changes such as gas, power and temperature. So in the smart house we fitted a gas valve and then use IoT sensors on the property to determine when someone left the building through geofencing. If they left so many meters of the property, it automatically knock off certain appliances around the property. So it's just to create a safer environment using the Internet of Things.
Yeah, so I'm just carrying on from what Ashley was saying there. So this video now is actually a respite service that we ran in Cardiff. It's just a standard house. It's not any particular like super modern house. It's just an ordinary house in an ordinary street, and we were equipping it with different devices that we were able to purchase, sometimes extremely cheaply, and put into those properties at the time. Ashley was talking about the gas valve there, so we did things like put gas valves in so we could connect them up to the internet and to sensors. So if a fire started, or if somebody were to leave the kitchen, for instance, and that were to be a risk, then the valve would switch off the cooker if they weren't in the room, and would set the temperatures of building and lights and other devices like that. So when he said that we could geofence a property to the needs of an individual, it would be about revisiting their support and saying, okay, so previously this individual was going to move on and become more independent, but these risk factors existed. So now we can use technology to reduce or take away these risk factors in the future. This is a video, it's actually over 2 years old now, but it's a video of ITV's report that they did on some of the work that we were doing in Cardiff in this respite house.
Remind me to take my tablets 9 o'clock.
Okay, I'll remind you at 9 p.m.
How smart gadgets are helping people with disabilities to enjoy a home of their own. Now, more of us than ever have voice-controlled devices in our homes. They're nice to have, aren't they? But for people with disabilities, these devices can be a life changer.
Turn kettle on.
We'll be meeting Sam, who's getting a helping hand from her techno housemate. Good. Now, these days, we all rely on smart technology, whether you like it or not, like sat-nav to plan our routes and mobile phone to check our emails, and even smart devices to remind us of our shopping lists. Well, now these devices are helping those with learning difficulties too, and helping them to give them more independence. Alexandra Hartley has been finding out more.
Could you remind me to take my tablets 9 o'clock?
From everyday reminders
Okay, I'll remind you at 9 p.m.
to everyday tasks.
Alexa, turn kettle on.
Smart devices are helping to improve lives.
It sort of like helps me with like my independence and saves the staff to like tell me I have to go to day service. I can automatically set a reminder on my dot upstairs. I also set it for like appointments or meetings.
Mark, you're going to show me how some of these devices work then.
Okay.
How about the TV? I understand you can turn it on without just waving.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. That what this is for people who haven't got a voice.
Mark, along with Sam and Hannah, all have learning impairments and rely on support. They've been given the smart devices to help them live more independently. And with their help, Sam hopes one day she'll be able to live on her own.
In the future, I'm hoping to move out into a visiting support house. So it'll help me to be able to do different things on my own without having the staff. I'm trying to get my grandmother and my auntie to have it, so I can phone them then when I'm in the house.
The charity behind this initiative say the devices also help people with physical disabilities.
So in this particular room, we've connected a blind out here, which can now be voice controlled. So if an individual wakes up in the morning, then they would be able to ask Alexa, in this case, to open the blind, and that would be done for them. So it would give them independence that they wouldn't have otherwise had.
Can we see it work?
Yes, absolutely. So Alexa, open the blind.
And for those people who can't use voice-activated devices, there are things like this cube that if you shake will turn the lights off, and if you flip, turn the lights back on again.
The technology could also save lives with sensors that switch gas off and send alerts to support workers if there's an emergency.
Lock the door for me, please.
Of course, there are costs to consider, but if this is the future...
Hello. Hi, Roger.
It could change lives.
Yeah.
Alexandra Hartley, ITV News, in Cardiff.
Quite well now.
It's clever, isn't it?
So as part of our project as well, we've done Cardiff University psychology research. So it's studying the effects of individuals' well-being before and after the introduction of the technology. We also done a piece of research with Cardiff National Software Academy. We studied using social digital companions. So it's using a humanoid robotic. And we were using IoT sensors around the property and machine learning algorithms. And then the idea was the robot would interact with the individual. So it's technology to look at in the future, but it was a product we were heavily involved in. And at the moment now we're looking at smart housing for adults with learning disabilities. So we've developed this first smart house in the UK for adults with learning disability in Cardiff. And we've also done a net zero carbon property with a partner housing association in North Wales. And we're currently working on several other properties as well. You muted, Nick.
Nick, I'm afraid you're muted at the moment.
Oh, sorry. And in addition, we're also completing a smart house with yourselves, the Vale Local Authority in Penarth. And that's going to be opening as a supported living house where we're going to be able to improve people's skills and hopefully move people on to greater levels of independence in the future. That should open in the next sort of 3 or 4 months, I think. So what we've developed so far, these are just a few video clips of things that we've made ourselves. So we made we called it a smart hat, but what we actually did was we took a video camera, we linked it to a piece of software that recognized photos and was able to give a description. And then we linked it to an Alexa device. And the results are that it gives a brief description if someone's wearing it. Ash.
Alexa, ask Innovate Hat.
Sure. You can ask me to describe the scene.
Describe the scene.
I think it is a dog sitting in front of a television. And the keywords are indoor, person, dog, small, sitting.
So, I mean, these are just ideas that we've got and that, maybe will be made into products in the future. But, we managed to create that for just under £100. And then this is Ashley's daughter demonstrating a gesture device that we made that she's wearing. It's not particularly practical in this sense, but she switches the light on behind her to Ashley.
So we've won several awards around digital inclusion and pro independence. That was in 2017, 2018 and 2019 as well. So that was around the work we've done around digital inclusion and the projects around IPA technology. We've also had different people visit the smart house in Cardiff. So this was the respite property Nick mentioned earlier. So we've had different professionals from different areas. And there's an example of a smoke alarm disabling the cooker through an IoT sensor. So it's just a simple example of how a smoke alarm would go off. It would actually disable the cooker by turning off the gas, and also it also shuts the doors on the property as well.
We also linked it up so it would be able to turn off the gas at the mains if the fire alarm went off and there was a fire, but it wouldn't turn those off if it was just a problem in one room. This is the final thing that we wanted to show you. So we developed an app which was initially for the people that we supported directly to enable them to create digital diaries and to invite their family members to join those diaries, and also professionals that were connected to them as well, so they would be able to post videos and photos each day. But as we were approaching lockdown last year, we decided to take as many of our activities online as possible. And then we started inviting other organisations and isolated individuals to join the app as well. So we support about 300 people in supported living services, but our Insight app's currently got just over 1,200 individuals with a learning disability using it from across the UK. And this is a video that's made fairly recently about some of the things that we're doing.
We now have got over 80 live activities per week. A quarter of those are run by the peer-led team. Some through Innovate Trust, some by skills and volunteering companies. And as other organisations join and run their activities to making this a great sharing hub. You can take part on our daily challenges. There are also pre-recorded activities, so if you don't fancy live activities and wanted to watch them at your own pace and time, you can. You can also post your ideas and suggestions. And now you can check our regular Insight News bulletins on Insight.
Welcome to Insight News. I'm your host, Richard Blackmore. Welcome to our peer-led news special. We'd like to introduce some people from the peer-led activity group. I'd like to introduce Tracy.
Hiya, my name's Tracy, and with my peer leading activities team, I run the dance session on the Monday night, which is at 7:10, and it finishes just between 8:30, 8:45.
I'd like to introduce David.
Hey there, Rich. I'm David. Quite recently, we've actually started the Breakfast Club, which is going quite popular between 9 and 10, Monday to Friday we're doing. So come along and find out what's happening for the day. In the evenings, we're bringing like sessions to you, such as Kazoom, which is going to be every single Saturday. Kazoom's basically a party which you do anything you want on the night. This Saturday coming, we've got the Zoomathon, which is from 10 o'clock in the morning till late at night.
Thanks, Dave, for your feedback. Look, Fionn.
Hi, I'm Fionn, and I'm also involved with the peer-led activity team as well. And I do a quiz night and an activity night on a Thursday at 6 o'clock. And I also do a TikTok group, which is 4 till 5 on a Friday.
Thank you, Fionn. Let's interview Nicole next.
Thank you, Richard. I'm the DJ for the people activities.
Thank you, Nicole.
At the moment, I've been hosting a series of discos online, usually on a Sunday night, as part of the peer-led activities. Got a regular group that stay up quite late. We usually go on to about, we've gone on to 1 o'clock, maybe even 2 o'clock, particularly for our special events.
What sessions do you run?
The sessions I run on Insight is current affairs once every Friday with Naomi. Once every Tuesday, I do my own wrestling group, which is called The Wrestling with My Friends.
I do watch on the Monday.
Siamai Francesca Domecq ydw I, a dwi'n dysgu Cymraeg dros y we. Hello, my name's Francesca Domecq and I'm the Welsh teacher. I'm a musician as well, so my classes are learning Welsh through song.
I do dance with Georgia.
My name's Georgia and I am the dance teacher for Innovate.
I always check on the app and see what there's any activities if I'm interested to go on. It's a good experience for everybody to looking after their well-being, and it's a good relaxing exercise for everybody.
I enjoy the sign class because I like to learn how to sign.
We enjoyed Lash Kumbana.
Hello, my name is Tom from an organisation called Electric Umbrella. There it is. We are a charity that works with adults with learning disabilities. We are challenging perceptions of people with learning disabilities by enriching and empowering lives through music. We are all in this crazy storm together.
If you didn't have insight, what would you be doing then?
Yeah, we're bored all the time.
If it wasn't for you guys who invented the app, because otherwise there will be no more activities, because how are we going to keep ourselves busy?
He likes to do the inside Monday to Friday.
I got the two boys.
When you get up, what's the first thing you ask for?
Turn this, I'm going to turn it.
That's right, you check your tablet, don't you? To see what sessions are on.
I've been running activities during lockdown for people with learning disabilities, and we've advertised them through Insight. You can come and join our drag night when we have one next, and you will never look back. So yeah, come and join, guys.
So that's kept a lot of people in touch. It's been really good for families as well to stay in touch with what their loved ones were doing during lockdown. But it's also kept people active and involved in different things. And as they said, we've been running 80 to 100 live activities a week. It's involved organisations, and it's involved like the Vale's Own Day Service, Vision 21, Vale Plus, Ambito, Cartrefi Cymru, Vale People First. They're all Vale organisations that are members of Insight. But it's open to anybody with a learning disability, and it's also brought a lot of activities to the Vale that people wouldn't have otherwise been able to take a part in. So you probably noticed from some of the accents there as well that there's people from all over Wales, and indeed from Scotland and England as well, taking part and contributing. And it's also proven that there's a lot of individuals that people maybe didn't give the opportunity to take part digitally before. Lots of people never had devices. But it's brought forward people's skills. And so engaging with the first part of our presentation to do with the IPA project and the potential engagement in the future is been made a lot easier by people's skill advancement during the period of the lockdown. But we're still running that service, and we're going to keep that going anyway. That's the end of our presentation, unless Ashley has anything to add. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Ashley, for the presentation. Councillor Thomas, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Nick and Ashley. I saw your presentation a couple of years ago at a disability awards ceremony in Cardiff there, where you presented this, and I recognised that it had implications and things for our telecare services and so on, which we're going to be discussing next. So I've been keen to get you along here to tell us about what you're doing. What you haven't, I mean, clearly Innovate Trust works mostly with people with learning disabilities. Part of my interest, though, is also people later in life, older people with diminishing faculties, developing with sort of Alzheimer's or dementia, where I can see benefits to having some sort of interactive technology, things to remind people to take their tablets, things to monitor movement and so on in case of falls, and so on. What work have you been doing on that kind of thing, please?
We have done some bits on the potential of future devices with older people, particularly with a project that we were doing with Cardiff University and a Pepper robot, and that was based upon that. It was a project that was linked to Monmouthshire County Council, but rather that Cardiff University was linked more to Monmouthshire County Council, and they were just using our experience around sensors and things that that we were using. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it was for National Software Academy in Newport. It was using a humanoid robot. It was a concept around using IoT sensors around a property. Like you said, the mainstream devices like the voice ones, you have to engage them yourselves. You have to say a keyword like Alexa or OK Google. The idea is to bring a humanoid robot in so that if someone with dementia was moving around the property, use machine learning algorithms to pick up on their usual patterns. So if they got up a certain time, went to a certain area, room, turned the heating on, turned the plug on, we could use that data then to determine what their usual routine was. And then the robot would actually engage the individual. So if an individual didn't, get up the usual time and there was a risk something was wrong, the idea that the robot would engage and say, Joe, are you up? Or are you okay? And then if there was no response, it'd call for a relative. So it's conceptual, but it was a lot of work around IoT sensors and the concept of that type of technology. We're currently looking at another research piece now around the older population and the use of technology as well. And that's around voice assistants and the effect of social media. So we're currently looking at that now and joining with different organisations and different charities as well to kind of look at the digital barriers and digital divides and how digital is changing the landscape for ageing population.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Nugent-Finn, have you got a question?
I have. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Neil, Councillor Neil Thomas, for bringing this forward. It's taken a while to get here, Neil, hasn't it? Because I remember, but no. So, you know what? Honestly, thanks for the persistence and obviously to your Chair and most importantly to Ashley and Nick. This is incredible, really. All I can go on is a visit to the day services a couple of years back, and there's an overwhelming response from service users to say, look, we have to bridge this digital divide, and you do this so beautifully. And again, with the restrictions that we've all had on us lately, we've relied even more heavily upon these this intervention and devices. So I think you've kind of timed this really, really well. And the other thing I'm interested in is this AV1 robot for children with long-term illnesses as well who can't attend school. So again, this is all just, so well suited to what you're saying. Not for this, perhaps another time, but I would be interested perhaps if you could just present in a report or a letter, follow up to the chair with regards to cost, funding available, and the setup of this for individuals. The presentation was brilliant, and the video was really important because obviously it's very service user led, and particularly from their point of view, which is critical as everything, isn't it? But yeah, just a little bit more perhaps on any funding that we may be able to get our hands on, or the costs, and how we kind of really individualize it for people with particular needs. As Neil quite rightly said, we've got telecare, which again is a whole other dimension. It's for sort of perhaps older service users, but it's great that we've got that in Innovative Glamorgan. But what you're doing at Innovative Trust is just very innovative. It's superb. So thank you very much for the presentation. It's very, very interesting, and the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. I suppose just could quickly say back to that, we could look at costing different things up, but we sort of almost need a little bit of a guide from yourselves about where you'd like us to go with some things. We're really interested in maintaining independence, maybe with older people. Sure. We want to, I mentioned about transitions and trying to lower the age range there. Actually, before the original lockdown, we were just starting a project with a school in Lantwick Major, and we were proposing the radical idea at the time that potentially you could use cameras and do some video classes for individuals that weren't able to attend school. And of course, that then became a reality for everybody, didn't it? So we're more than happy to provide it, but it's sort of such an open question that if you're able to refine it, then that would make it easier for us.
Of course, Nick. Yeah, I mean, I just to give you one example, there's a service users that said, look, they would just like to know how to use an Alexa. And my thinking behind that was perhaps we could engage with some of the young people who are very au fait with technology and IT, and certainly these types of devices, and again just bridge it that way. But if you've got a slicker sort of system where we can we could offer this perhaps in a demonstration way, or practical, or via Teams or Zoom to some of the service users. I know that would be very well, much appreciated and very well welcomed. So yeah, it's that sort of stuff. It's just beginning to bridge that digital divide. And in terms of funding, everything else, yeah, I mean, obviously there's huge cost to this, I would imagine. And so again, anything that you've come across with regards to particular funding for individuals, perhaps with extensive needs, or as a local authority, I'm sure members would be interested as well in finding out a breakdown of costs.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, because it is all about as cheap as possible, really.
Yeah.
Like some of the centres that we've been using, we've been picking out for sort of, £5 or £6 as opposed to like large amounts of money. But we'll come back to you. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent-Finn. There was a few questions there and suggestions from Nugent-Finn there. Is there anything we need to do on this committee to put those requests in, Amy, or is that something?
Well, I think the request, Chair, obviously, as Nick has pointed out, he's able to provide on request. So I think from this context, the point is to keep the lines of communication open between Innovate Trust and ourselves, and to approach them when we have a particular target audience or need or service that we're looking to develop, and then they can give us some advice at that point. So yeah, but we can certainly obviously officers will have that information, the contact information for both Ashley and Nick, if we need to approach them anyway, so via myself, so I can make sure officers have got that for when we have the appropriate moment, if that sounds okay to you in the committee.
Yeah, sounds good. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thanks for letting me back in, Chair. I think one of the things that the committee can do is our next item is going to be looking at telecare and the telecare services updates, and the information we've just got from Innovate Trust can help inform our discussion on that. So I think, which is one of the reasons I was keen to have the two presented on the same meeting. In terms of the cost of these things, as Nick has just said, Echo Dots and the stuff like that, some of the Amazon devices and so on are actually very, very cheap in the scheme of things. They are only a matter of tens of pounds rather than hundreds, which some of these things can cost, and their versatility and the kind of stuff that could be provided through Innovate, from what I understand from what they've been telling us, means that they are actually far more cost effective, perhaps, than some of the older technology that we have been using. So it will be interesting to hear now from in the next part of the meeting about what they are actually doing, what is available, and maybe starting a dialogue between Innovate and Telecare to see how we can combine. The people who are operating that, to see how we can combine the two and utilise the best of both. Thank you.
Great, yeah, that sounds a really good idea. Excellent. Hopefully we can get some queries and ideas from the next the agenda item. Councillor Gray, I believe you got your hand up. Hi there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just to highlight what Susanna put in the chat. We also already do work very closely with Innovate Trust, and so as things come forward, we can obviously work on those. So we're not starting from a standing start. And as Nick pointed out, we've got the new supporting independent living facilities coming on stream very shortly, new housing, and that's going to be very exciting to see that working. And I think as we understand the technologies and use them more, that will obviously support further developments, and it's all about learning from how different users interact with things. So yeah, those lines of communication are there. I think it's as and when things come up which are interesting, and as we as members get contact from service users maybe have particular needs, those communication lines are there, and it's really useful. And thank you for the presentation today. I think it's been great to sort of focus our minds on what's possible.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Would anyone else like to come in before we wrap up this agenda item? Councillor Thomas, John Thomas, don't know whether you had your hand up earlier. No, okay.
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Ashley, for that presentation and what possibilities and what you do. That was brilliant, and that was very good. Thank you very much. Is there anything else we need to do on the agenda item, Amy, or we're happy to move on to the agenda item 5?
Happy to move, Chair. I just wanted to clarify if obviously Nick and Ashley have the availability, if they would like to remain on for the next agenda item in case there is any advice they'd like to give us. But obviously I do appreciate they have other commitments. So I just wanted to flag that with you.
Okay, yeah, we'll stay for that. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you all. Amy. Okay, moving on to the section of the item now, to the report of the Director of Social Services, agenda item 5, telecare services update. Hi there. Hi, Suzanne.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take this item. So thank you for the opportunity to share with members what's been happening in relation to telecare services. I think it's probably important to say that there is a distinction between what we've heard to date regarding the IPA and that presentation that Nick and Ashley have just given, in the sense of what the telecare service to date is doing is primarily an alarm service, a preventative service, rather than a tech-enabled care service. And so that's quite a different kind of cohort. And just to set that into context, I think that's really important to just sort of set that out. And before I go on to the report, I think it is important to say that we have valued the support of Innovate Trust particularly over the pandemic, but we've enjoyed a long-standing relationship in terms of supporting to date those individuals with learning disabilities, but also understood and valued their input around how we might use some of those ideas with other individuals that we support. Okay, so on the basis that I will work is that members have had the chance to look at the report and the appendix of the presentation. I'm obviously happy to take members' questions and have a discussion. The report is written in 3 parts. The first outlines the information that members will be familiar with that describes the service and the activity. The second part is the response to the pandemic, and then the third part is around the management review that is in process at the moment. So during the pandemic, the service continued to operate. We waived the installation fee to increase the numbers and to try to ensure that people felt supported when they became isolated due to the lockdown situation. In paragraphs 2.1.1, you'll see there was an increase of 35% during that similar period over two years that we've looked at. We have continued to waive that installation fee, and we were worried that we wouldn't we would be concerned around the sustainability in terms of finance and resources that might cause as a result of waiving that installation fee. But as you can see from the report, we've actually seen an increase in revenue because we've been able to increase the number of individuals receiving this service during this time. And also members should note that it does not include any cost avoidance that was also potentially been a consequence where telecare has delayed or prevented an individual's progression into the receipt of direct care and support. The team did experience high levels of absence during the latter 6 months, and this would have been problematic. It would have been something that jeopardised the service that we were able to offer. However, social care staff were repurposed to support the service, and we also benefited from the support of the exercise referral team. And in paragraph 2.2.5, you can read about the additional benefits that we've gained from these other staff groups being involved in actually delivering the service. And it's important to thank that particular service and those staff as well for stepping in and being able to provide this resilient service. It really is appreciated. And I think that has enabled us to have a sustainable relationship and learn from that experience. So in relation to the review that myself and the Head of Policy and Business Transformation commissioned, members can consider Appendix 1, the initial feedback and the information gathering. The scope of the review is outlined in 2.3.2 and with interim findings at the time of submitting the report that are set out under paragraph 2.3. It is evident from the review that there are 4 key areas to action. The service is at an interesting crossroads due to the imminent changes in external infrastructure as providers of broadband to individual residences change their systems. The digital switchover will force telecare service to adapt, and we need to ensure we identify a sustainable solution, including horizon scanning for technological solutions. Companies that supply in this particular area are adapting their products in order to meet this change as well. And we're on the cusp of that at the moment, where you're seeing the market shifting. And that's why it's quite difficult to try to predict how we find a sustainable solution right now. But we are linking in with other stakeholders to learn what their experiences are to date, what are the advantages, what are the pitfalls of some of the decisions that they have made. And the team leader is a member of the learning network to ensure that we do have the most up-to-date information. And we are supporting the team to access relevant conferences. You know, the digital world of being able to attend a conference now is far more accessible to all of us. And so we're trying to identify the best solution for our service. Regardless of the digital and the technological solutions, we are in the process of identifying. The review also flagged some fundamental issues regarding how the service is managed, and how it is particularly in relation to how it's structured across 2 directorates. Staff are requesting an integrated management structure, which we plan to develop and obviously follow the right consultation procedures. Also, we need to ensure that staff who receive challenging and sometimes distressing contact with those we support, we need to ensure that they have access to support themselves, to debrief, to reflect and to learn from their experiences, and in order for them to feel valued and supported themselves. Finally, but importantly, it is critical that telecare services, as is, are not considered in isolation, but as a key component of a wider response and a preventative service. We want to expand the service to include a rapid response team. And just as the pandemic hit, we had secured funding to pilot a rapid response team, which was if an individual had fallen in their home, that we were able to provide that initial response. Unfortunately, the funding was removed due to the pandemic, and we're hoping that we'll be able to reconvene and secure funding to be able to do that as and when. But that is definitely a desire for this team and for the service. We also want to connect with the Community Resource Service, and the Welsh Ambulance Service Trust has a full service that's wanting us to connect with them through that as well. We want to be more wellbeing focused, work with the citizens that benefited from the input of the exercise referral team to continue with that work, to continue that partnership within the council and also with other departments and other organisations, bearing in mind the previous discussion we've had this evening. The next steps include the development of a detailed action plan around these 4 areas, sourcing technical expertise, coincidentally, and that's what obviously been referred to this evening, to advise us on the technological and digital solutions and develop proposals for an integrated management structure where staff feel confident to manage challenging situations. The independent resources that are referred to in the reports that were utilised to be able to support the review now need to hand over to the operational team in order to implement these actions. And the Telecare Management Board will continue to oversee and monitor its progress. It is anticipated that there will be an additional project management capacity to assist us with ensuring that there's momentum behind this and securing technical expertise to advise the Management Board accordingly. So I'm happy to take questions from any members.
Thank you, Suzanne. Would anyone like to ask any questions or comments? Hi there, Councillor MacArthur. I see your hand up first. Hi.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, it's less of a question, more of a comment, really. It's really reassuring to hear you say the positive things about the exercise referral team, because I think it was as difficult at times it was for your telecare staff, it was difficult for them as the exercise referral team because they couldn't work in the way that they wanted to. So the fact that they got involved and they were repurposed to do something else, and it was better for the service users at the end of it. I hate that term, but it was better for everyone. I think everyone benefited from that. So I'm really grateful that it worked out so well, and thank you to them, and thank you to you guys for taking them on board. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacArthur. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to echo Catherine's comments, Councillor MacArthur's comments, and thank Suzanne and all her staff working in this area for the work they've been doing over these extraordinary times. In terms of looking at telecare stuff and what we've just heard from Innovate, I appreciate what you were saying at the beginning, Suzanne, but there are. When my mum was living in her flat, she had a number of falls. She had on the flats that she was living in had their own version of telecare, and she had a wristband that she could have pushed to alert the people on the other end to the falls. Unfortunately, due to her dementia, she never remembered she was wearing the damn push button, and so she could well have fallen before bed at night. After the last carer had left, and then be stuck sitting on the floor all night with no way of relating to that. As I understand it, the Innovate stuff can sense movement, sense where people are, see where people have fallen, get in touch with them through something like an Alexa, say hi. Hello, in this case, Mrs. Thomas, how are you? Are you okay? And she'll say, no, I'm sitting on the floor, and they can then phone me and get me to go down and sort her, or could have phoned me to get me to go down to sort her out in that situation. Now, that wasn't the situation with what she has, but it is the potential for this for combining this with telecare. Now, has telecare now got that kind of provision? Can it do that sort of thing? And where are the limitations? And how can we move forward with combining the two, please?
And in answer to that, Councillor Thomas, it's always had that ability. It's additional parts to the package. So it's subject to an assessment that an individual will receive. And if a need is identified, in the situation, in the example that you've given, it would be a falls sensor. So actually, the individual wouldn't need to press an alarm. Actually, it would sense and it would alert, and so then it would the call handler, the operator, would call over the I can't think of the right word. The actual
intercom.
Intercom. Thank you, and be able to actually speak with, in your case, your mum. So that has always been available as part of the packages. So there's so many different parts that are available on the market. As you say, it is things that are readily available in terms of consumer market, and then there is more. I don't want to use the word specialist because but that's how we've operated to date. That it starts to push into what we call the tele-V component of our service, which is more advanced, which is more tailored to an individual's needs and based on their care and support needs. So they can be a full sensor. It can be that they leave the house in terms of door sensors and those sorts of kits that start to bolt on to what you may be more familiar with, which is your pendant alarm or your wrist alarm and those kind of things. So there is so much more to the service, and that would be as a part of an assessment, and that's what our telecare support officers will go out to do, and that is also what social workers have been involved with. So that has always been part of the service. I'm not saying that it's there are limitations in us exploring making this more accessible with other products, and that is where we need the technical expertise to ensure that we make it as future-proof as we possibly can. And I think that the moment our concern is with the digital switchover, each provider does it slightly differently and in a different time scale. So we need to make sure that things are compatible, so to ensure the safety of those that we support. And that's the concern, and that's the hesitation at the moment, is ensuring that we've done as much research to ensure that we get it as right as we possibly can. And having that dialogue with suppliers, with other individuals who use this assistive technology in a way that we haven't explored to date, but we know that it has the potential.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm heading. I think, Suzanne, it's looking at some sort of blended technology that works with the problems that we do see around the county. People who have particular needs. I know that some of the specialist devices are slightly more high end and can therefore be more expensive as a result, whereas a lot of this technology that we're talking about today is actually based on comparatively cheap stuff. An Echo Dot is only a matter of 10, 20 quid these days. I mean, they're virtually giving them away in a lot of circumstances. And some of the better ones are with video capacity and so on aren't hugely expensive. And so the potential, I think, and the potential for dialogue between the Telecare and Innovate and people like that, and finding a blended solution tailored to individual needs. I think personally, I find that quite an exciting concept and a way to go forward. Thank you.
Oh, thank you both. Councillor Abiot.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Suzanne, I was just wondering about the call handlers. Are they they used to be based in our call centre, but are they working just as well from home? And are they 24/7?
So the answer is they are still in the contact centre, and they are 24/7. And we do have an arrangement that ensures that we have business continuity and resilience.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to ask anything? Okay, I believe we're good. So we have two recommendations here. One, that the work and future developments of the Telecare services are considered by the Scrutiny Committee, so it continues, and we continue to have annual updates. Are we happy for that to continue? Yes. Okay. Great,
Chairman,
thank you.
Chairman, if you don't mind me just asking, because obviously Suzanne has referred to the service review that's been taking place. I'm just thinking, if we do receive this report again annually, is it more appropriate for it to be 12 months from now, or I'm not sure when the review is finishing, you see, I just wanted to clarify.
In response, the review has concluded. It didn't conclude in time to include in the report. And so, as I said in my verbal updates, was that it's at the stage where we're developing an action plan now. So I have shared with individuals what the current position.
Okay, so so if I was to schedule for a year's time, this time next year, then that would be an appropriate amount of time in between the service review action plan being developed, and obviously how the service is then developed in the meantime to update members.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, are we happy to move? Okay, Councillor Thomas, anyone to second? I'm happy to second it, if that's allowed. Okay, great. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Hi there.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I was just going to say thank you very much to Ashley and Nick who have stayed on, and obviously we've concluded that item now. So.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you both.
Bye.
Good evening. Okay, great. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, and it is the sport and play update. So this is a report that's come from the Environment and Housing Services. And David Nevitt, I believe you're going to be presenting this.
Thank you, Chair. This is just the annual report that we produce for committee. Obviously, last year we went into quite a bit of detail in terms of the activities that the sport and play unit were undertaking. Obviously, the last year has been particularly strange for everybody, and there is a short presentation that Karen's going to now give. What we wanted to do was just concentrate on some of the initiatives that have obviously started in terms of the pandemic and some of the work that we've been doing. It is a fairly short presentation and just highlights 3 of the projects. Obviously, the majority of the information of the work of the Sport and Play team are contained in the report. And once Karen's given her presentation, if you come back to me, I can just lead you through the recommendations. Okay.
Okay, brilliant. Over to you, Karen.
Are you okay with sharing your screen, Karen?
Yeah, I'm just trying to upload it now. Bear with me.
Okay. No problem.
It never goes as smooth as you hope when you try to upload. Can you all see that?
Yes, I can. It's not actually on slideshow yet.
Looking good.
Press.
There we go.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to talk you briefly through 3 case studies of some of the projects we ran during the last year. The first case study relates to what's called the Bale Play Pavilion. It was a scheme that we set up in response to the need for support for children from Children and Young People Services. So a vulnerable children tactical group was created, and that group consisted of the Healthy Living team, social services, and representatives from the Learning and Skills Directorate. It was recognised that during the times of COVID, there were quite a few families that were needing additional support. So we decided in July 2020 to set up what was called the Bale Play Pavilion, which provided school holiday provision over the school holidays in the summer. We supported 60 children during that time, 43% of whom had additional needs. And we felt that the families would benefit from the time with the children being able to access activities that were taken away from any family issues that were there. Of the 60 children who were supported, there were 458 participations. And we had staff from both the playwork sector and the sports sector helping within that scheme. To ensure that the staff were able to offer the appropriate services, they also attended youth mental health first aid training as well, and we found that was really beneficial. We obtained funding via the Welsh Government to put on that training. As part of the Vale Play Pavilion, we also delivered some healthy packed lunches, and we've provided those for the children that attended. We ran the scheme initially through the summer holidays. The feedback from the social workers and the families was very positive. As you can see on the screen, I've got some feedback examples there. But due to that success and due to the continued issues with COVID impacting on families, it was decided by the group that we would continue running that scheme over 4 school holidays. So in total, we ran 27 days of provision, which catered for 135 hours of play activities for the children. Some of the case studies, feedback from parents, for example, one of the ones I've included on the screen is around a young child who has ASD and found it really quite difficult to integrate within his school system and integrate within his community. And by accessing the provision at this time, it really did bring himself and develop his personality. He's always struggled to relate to his peers, but as a result of the play scheme, he's become more confident, switched on, and actually the family have fed back that they really hope that it's going to help impact on his future activity participation. So within school, it's hoping that he will also integrate a little bit more within those settings. So I think the scheme has been really beneficial during the time of COVID. What we've decided moving forward as a tactical group is that there is still a need to support vulnerable children, but we're actually looking to support those children through more of our open access provision. So rather than running a provision specifically for children identified through social services, we'll look to set up play schemes across the school holidays and integrate the children identified via that scheme. So moving on to case study 2, talking about Reggie Goes to the Moon's physical literacy books that I'm identified within the report. So the physical literacy books are all about developing the physical skills that children require to become confident to take part in sport and physical activity. So whether that's throwing, catching, jumping. But when you take into account disabled children, there is such a variety of needs and differences amongst the children. When consultation was undertaken with specialist health visitors, schools and parents, it was identified that many of those children had not had the opportunity to develop their skills to undertake sport and physical activity. So as a result of that, our Healthy Living Officer for Disability Sport created these storybooks, and there are a series of 6 storybooks, and each of those cater for a different disability group. So, for example, one of the books is targeted at those who use motorised wheelchairs. There's a book targeting those with autism and learning disability. There's a book for visually impaired children. So there is a variety of books available, all along the same theme, but targeted specifically at those impairment groups. And it's targeted through fun storytelling. So we've made those books available free of charge. They're currently being distributed to families, schools, preschool settings. We've linked with Flying Start. We've linked with the Families First Holiday Club that offer their play opportunities during the summer. And we're also currently going to start liaising with the local sports clubs as well. The books are being funded through a partnership with the Cardiff and Vale Public Health team through their prevention funding, because it's been recognised that the project would positively impact on the Cardiff and Vale Move More Eat Well plan. So the project has been completed in the sense that books are ready and printed, and we are just distributing at this point in time. We will review 6 months down the line, 3 months, 3 months and 6 months down the line to see if those books have had any impacts on the families. Our final case study is around the online work that we undertook during the school, during the time that COVID had impacted on our programme. So we appreciated that obviously the schools were closed, the clubs were closed, and access to community activities was very limited. So we had to look at how we could adapt our programmes to meet the current situation. One of the usual programmes we would deliver would schools festival calendar. So we had to adapt that, and we looked at implementing a series of virtual challenges instead. So these challenges included ideas such as the Daily Mile, the 4 Challenges competition, and also multi-sports opportunities. We found that actually this year our participation figures were higher than in the previous year before COVID, and we think that was because the activities were able to engage the whole school approach. When we run the activities within a venue or a setting, there's a limited number of children that can be brought along. The schools might face barriers such as having to identify teachers to cover the children that are remaining within the school. There might be transportation costs. So there are some barriers that schools do face when undertaking our usual face-to-face festivals. So actually the virtual challenges has proven to be quite beneficial in increasing our participation rates. The flexible approach meant that the schools were able to amend the challenges where appropriate. So if the challenges we set didn't suit the abilities of the children they were targeting, there was the flexibility to change those. They were able to take the whole school approach. And when children or classes were having to isolate, the flexibility of the activities also meant that the children could participate at home, making it an inclusive programme. And the festival's challenges were very much about personal achievements. It wasn't about who scored the highest or who did the most skips. It was all about personal achievements and trying to develop on their physical skills. I've got some examples of some of the feedback on the screen for you. I'm not sure if you can see those, but for example, a hula hooping challenge. I think we assume that everybody can do a skill such as hula hooping, but the feedback from one of the schools, the 4-week challenge, at the beginning of the challenge, 20% could hula hoop. By the end, 95% were able. And the same with skipping. There were 10% who could not skip at all. So following the challenge, they've developed their skills and are able to now 100% of the children could skip. The teachers have reported increases in fitness levels, and they've also reported that it positively impacted on the pupils when they returned from undertaking that activity. So it actually helped in their classroom with their concentration levels. Finally, just talking through some of the virtual challenges that we set with the families and communities. So we used our social media channels to set some virtual activity challenges. So an example here, join in January, where we set the challenge of undertaking a mile a day, whether that was skipping, running, cycling. We had 149 people contact us to say that they joined in with that event. They sent us their trackers and we rewarded them with certificates. We also had a Fit in February challenge. And in the report, I think I also talked about the Active August challenges and the Join in June. So a variety of different challenges that families could undertake, as well as adults if they lived on their own. The feedback demonstrated that 25% of the individuals taking part in the Join in January and Fit in Feb challenges were not previously active. So it is actually helping to engage those who were not previously active prior to COVID. 79% of the residents felt they felt more motivated to participate in activity, and 68% of them felt healthier. We also, alongside those challenges, had a social media campaign just to raise awareness about the importance and benefits of physical activity. We had a reach of over 3,480 residents on those, and that was just using some of the national data and some of the local information just to spread a word about the benefits of physical activity. And that also linked in with our workforce development project within the Vale Council, where again we were trying to raise awareness about the benefits of physical activity to our staff, which is particularly relevant during the time of COVID. We've got some little comments on the side of the presentation to show the impact of these virtual challenges. So for one lady, it did help her and motivate her to leave the house every day, because I think during COVID, quite a few people, particularly those living on their own, reported that they did find it quite difficult to motivate themselves to leave the house. So these challenges were helping to encourage that. So Dave, that's the end of the brief presentation you asked me to do.
Thank you, Karen. Sorry, my sound's fading a little bit. Chair, the only other thing I wanted to draw people's attention to was in the report that at certain times during the pandemic, obviously sports development staff, much like the nurse staff, were called upon to do other duties and were seconded in certain ways when our funding partners allowed us to do that. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank them for that. Chair, we're quite happy to take any questions. Obviously, there's a lot of detail in the report that we haven't gone into, but I'm sure members have had an opportunity. And if there are any questions, we're obviously more than happy to take those.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, David. I'll open up to the floor. Would anyone like to ask any questions to both? Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. It's inevitably me. I did wait to see if anybody else was going to put their hands up first. But thanks for the presentation, Karen. It was interesting. Thanks, Dave. Presumably, the books that you were talking about that they're available to people, to all pupils within the schools. You did mention that they were in the schools, and hopefully, particularly Ysgolyderi as well. But presumably they're open to everybody to improve integration and so on as well. Is that the case? Yeah.
Yeah, we've contacted all schools and offered all schools access to those books. We've also linked with the Family Information Service because they've got the index, which they have over 400 families registered on that index of children. So we've shared the information via the index. So individual families can also request copies if they want to. We've liaised with our public health partners. We're liaising with Fly and Start, and so we're trying to hit as many families as we can to make sure they're able to access these books. But if you've got any other suggestions as well, we're more than happy to share that information.
Well, the only thing is things like there's a play group for kids with disabilities in Penarth here in Glendale Hall, okay. And I'm guessing that you're involved with them as well. I
can find out. If not, we can certainly make sure we pass them on to those.
Yeah, but as I say, it's mostly for younger children, but it is for children with learning disabilities and other disabilities as well. I know there's visually impaired and other disabilities attend this group, but I'm just hoping that groups like that are also being trawled as well. Thank you.
Councillor MacArthur, I see you have your hand up. Hi.
Thank you, Chair. If anybody else wants to ask, I can wait. But I'm a bit excited because I just think what Karen and her team do is invaluable. And I just wanted to let them know that I'm grateful for all the work they've done over the pandemic. It's been really tough because there's been lots of time where the team's been separated, and it's a really cohesive team that's got everyone's best interests at heart. I just wanted to let you know, and you can let your team know, that we're really grateful for all the work that you do and the difference you make to so many children's lives and their families. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I definitely echo Catherine MacArthur's comments there. Would anyone else like to come on in before we wrap up? Okay, we have two recommendations. Number one, that the committee notes the information contained within this report. I believe everyone is happy with that, and that a further annual report on the activities of the Council Sports and Play Development Team be submitted to committee for consideration in June 2022, which is in a year's time.
Yeah, move the recommendations, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and Councillor Thomas can second. Thank you all. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, David. With that, happy to be interrupted, Amy, if there's anything else, but I'm happy to just go through agenda item 7, any items which the chairman has decided are urgent, part 1. I don't. And agenda item 8, part 2, urgency from the chairman, I don't. So I believe that is it. Is there anything else, Amy? If not,
No,
bid
thank
you all. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. And
Thank you, Chairman.
Catch you in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Cheers
Bye.
all.
care all.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye now.